baseball fans. This is Big Game James for ThinkSlinger.org with another installment of our ThinkCast podcast. And as usual, we're talking baseball, and I'm going to go back to the early 1900s, specifically the 1912 Triple Crown today. It appears that there is a retroactive winner, or that there should be. Moreover, it's said to be one of baseball's most coveted titles. The player who leads the league in home run, RBI, and average at the end of a season wins it. This title I'm referring to is none other than professional baseball's official offensive version of the Triple Crown. And Major League Baseball has declared just 12 winners since 1922. That is 12 official winners since 1922. Rogers Hornsby won it primordially with a staggering 42 home runs, 152 RBIs, and a 401 average, while the award's most recent recipient, Miguel Cabrera, won it in 2012 with 44 home runs, 139 ribbies, and a 330 average. Wow. I would certainly take both of those players, or even just one, on my fantasy team any day of the week. I'm pretty sure that everyone else out there doing fantasy baseball would do the same. However, just like universities do with those dusty history books, Major League Baseball might have to do some revising of their own. Why? Because the retired scientist and renowned sabermetrician Herb Krabenhoft is about to drop a peer-reviewed paper in the April edition of Baseball Research Journal that is coming out next month. His research claims that Honus Wagner, who's alleged to have led the league in RBI, did not, in fact, lead the league that year, and, as a result, Heine Zimmerman should, as a result of his discovery, be the retroactive winner of the 1912 National League Triple Crown. So before we move on, let's take a look at both of these ball players' stats. Heine Zimmerman of the Chicago Cubs, he played third base and second base. A little bit about him: he finished sixth in the 1912 MVP voting. He is number 98 on the top 100 Cubs list of all time. He was traded to the New York Giants in 1916, and he is a two-time World Series champion. They're both coming in 1907 and 1908. In 1912, he batted .372, had 104 RBIs, and hit 14 home runs. And again, he finished number 6th in the MVP balloting. Honus Wagner of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He played shortstop, right field, and first base. A little bit about him: he finished second in the 1912 MVP voting. That is, he finished ahead of Heine Zimmerman that year. His T206 baseball card is, I'm just going to say, it's very expensive. In fact, it's one of the most expensive baseball cards, one of the most valuable out there. He was also a World Series champion, winning it in 1909 with the Pirates, and his number 33 is retired by them as well. His stats for 1912, or at least his Triple Crown stats, were he had 7 home runs, 101 RBI, and a .324 batting average. Now, it appears, at least according to baseballreference.com, is where I compile all my stats from, it appears that Honus Wagner trailed in not one, two, but all 3 of these categories. So what's the deal? Clearly, Zimmerman led Wagner in all 3 of the necessary categories for the Triple Crown. What's striking, at least to me, about these stats, especially when viewed side by side, is both men batted an almost identical number of times. Zimmerman saw 557 at-bats, while Wagner saw 558. And they played in the same number of games, which registers at 145. So there's no reasonable argument supporting that the two played on unequal footing, or, more importantly, that either held any special advantages over the other. Moreover, Major League Baseball does not officially recognize a Triple Crown winner in 1912 at all. Why? Well, because Wagner had more RBI than Zimmerman, or so it was thought. That is, until Herb Krabenhoft took a stubborn second look at how scorekeepers kept track of RBI at the time. That is, at the time. There was a different system set up, and we'll get into that in a second. And there's also a caveat to this as well. RBI did not become an official stat until 1920, 8 years later. But even then, Rule 86, Section 8 was remarkably vague, instructing scorers in the following manner. And I quote, "The summary shall contain," talking about RBIs, and this is it right here, folks, "the number of runs batted in by each batsman." That is it. That is the only rule that there was in 1920 instructing official scorekeepers to register RBIs. I'll repeat that one more time. It is extremely vague. The number of runs batted in by each batsman. That was the rule on the books back then. That left plenty of room for interpretation of the scoring rule, obviously. In the absence of a strict definition, scorers across both leagues were inconsistent in recording what they considered a legitimate RBI. This inconsistency polluted numbers for at least a decade, despite the fact that the statistic was finally official. It wasn't until 1931 when Rule 70, Section 13, defined the rule more explicitly. And here's that rule. Runs batted in are runs scored on safe hits, including home runs, sacrifice hits, outfield putouts, infield putouts, and when the run is forced over by reason of the batsman becoming a base runner. With less than 2 outs, if an error is made on a play on which a runner from third would ordinarily score, credit the batsman with a run batted in, or RBI. And that's the entire rule right there. As you can see, it was fleshed out almost entirely by 1931. While this particular definition has since evolved, for the first time, official scorers had a clear definition of what should be tabulated as RBI. Though, as you can imagine, recording errors remained a problem in the pre-computer era. Fortunately for baseball enthusiasts, sabermetricians have been devising ways to calculate more accurately these magical baseball numbers, such as RBI, and doing it specifically from the era, which is the dead ball era in which Zim and Wag played. Somewhere in that dark process, you'll definitely find Mr. Krabbenhoff violently crunching these newer numbers and canonizing them perhaps in his highly anticipated paper. My question is, will he be correct in claiming that Major League Baseball needs to add a lucky 13th Triple Crown winner to their official list? Ladies and gentlemen, baseball fans of all ages, I'm here to tell you, I'm all for it if he's right. Well, that'll do it for today. What do you think? Should Heine Zimmerman be awarded a Triple Crown award? Or at least should he be awarded the 1912 Triple Crown Award retroactively? Go ahead and leave your comments in the boxes below, and feel free to reach out to thinkslinger.org anytime, any day of the week. We're here 24/7. Anyhow, this is Big Game James for thinkslinger.org, and that'll do it for today. We'll see you next time.